Okay, so these are going to be your notes for today. So today's notes are going to be something called product of a power. And it's actually a combination of both the product rule and the power to power rule. So you're actually going to be using both of those when we do these examples. So if we take a look at example 1, in parentheses we have y cubed times y, and on the outside of the parentheses we have a 4 here. So this is a little bit different than ones we've seen before, because the ones we've seen before have looked like this. They could either have been y cubed times y, or we might have seen like y cubed only with one y, oops, to the 4th power. So we've never had one where there's a power on the outside and where there's two of the same variable on the inside. So there's different ways you can do it. There's not just one way, but this would probably be the easiest way that I would suggest doing it for all of these 3 problems. So what I would do is I would work inside the parentheses, simplify whatever you can on the inside of the parentheses, and then at the end multiply the exponent in. That way it's a little bit less work for you to do as you go through. So, like I said, if we're just looking inside the parentheses, notice how we have the 2 y's. The first thing that you want to point out is this 4 is not on this y. The 4 is on the outside of the parentheses, so it's on the whole problem. So this y itself here actually doesn't have an exponent, so we know then that the exponent is going to be 1. So that's important to recognize before you start, because then if we're simplifying inside the parentheses, if we have 2 y's, we can actually keep their base and add their exponents. So what that would look like is y to the 3 plus 1, which we know is then going to be 4. And then we keep the exponent that's on the outside. So it will still be to the 4th power. So when I go ahead and simplify that, I actually do know what 3 plus 1 is. So this is actually going to be y to the 4th power. And again, keeping that 4 on the outside. So after we add those exponents together, the 3 and the 1, we can actually now use the power to power and multiply these 2 4's. So our simplified answer is actually going to be y to the 16th. And again, we got there by doing first adding the 3 plus 1 and making it just so there's 1 y, and then multiplying the 4 on the outside with that 4 on the inside to get 16. So this over here will be our final answer. Okay, so same thing happens with example 2. In example 2, we have 2 y's, and then we have parentheses with an exponent on the outside. So again, the best way to do this is to work inside out and simplify on the inside first, and then work with what's on the outside. So it's almost like we're covering this 3 and just looking at this as 2y squared times 3y to the 5th. So if we're using the product rule on the inside of the parentheses, like we said before, we're keeping this cubed on the outside because we know it's there, but on the inside we have 2 coefficients. So when we have 2 coefficients, we multiply those together, so we get 2 times 3 is 6, and then we keep our base, which is y, and add the exponents. So if I add 2 plus the 5, it now becomes y to the 7th. So again, to get 6y to the 7th, I did 2 times 3 because those are coefficients, and we kept the y and added the 2 plus 5. That's how we got 7. And notice again, this 3 on the outside here does not move because we haven't done anything with it. So we just carried it down here. And then this is actually a power to power problem now because we have this 3 on the outside. So again, really what we're doing is distributing this 3 to all the exponents on the inside. So just as a reminder, this is not 6 times 3. This is actually, there's like technically a 1 on this 6, so we're really just making it 6 to the 3rd power. And then we keep the y, and because we're doing the power to power, we do 3 times 7, so that'll actually be to the 21st power. And then we do want to remember that 6 cubed is not, again, 6 times 3. 6 cubed actually means 6 times 6. 6. So you do want to keep that in mind. You don't want to write 18. 6 times 6 times 6 actually becomes 216, and then we keep the y to the 21st. So this is actually going to be our final answer here. So again, we simplified the inside of the parentheses and then distributed the 3 on the outside once we finish there. Okay, and then example 3 will actually be the hardest one we will do today, but it's really the same thing that we have been doing. Notice we have similar bases on the inside of the parentheses, and then we also have this 3 on the outside. So again, best thing to do is simplify the inside first and keep this third on the outside, and then distribute it at the end. So if we look on the inside, we have 4 and 3. We have 2 x's, and we have 2 y's. Notice that this x here doesn't have anything, so we know that this is technically a 1 here. And this y really doesn't have anything because this 3 is on the outside, it's not on this y. So this is technically still a 1 here. So keep that in mind when we're actually going to simplify. So because these two are a product rule, we actually are coefficients, so we're going to multiply the 4 and 3, and we get 12. Our next thing that we're working with are these 2 x's, so I'm going to write my x. Again, we notice that this x had a 1 on it, this x had a 2 on it, so when we add the 1 plus the 2, it does become x to the third. And then if we notice the y's, this y has a 2 on it, this y technically has a 1 on it, so when we add the 2 plus 1, that will be to the third as well. So again, this is not done here, because if we actually have power to power as well, because there's this 3 on the outside, so now we have to distribute this 3 in. So again, this is why there's 2 steps to all of these problems. So we're actually distributing the 3 to the 12, the exponent of 3 to this 3, and the exponent of 3 to this 3. So when we do this again, it's not 12 times 3, it's 12 now to the third power, because we're distributing it as an exponent. We get x, now we multiply these 2 exponents to the 3 times 3, and we get to the 9th. And again, on the y, we have 3 times 3, so this will be to the 9th as well. And we're almost done here. So 12 cubed. So 12 cubed again, just as a side note, 12 cubed does mean 12 times 12 times 12, so this will be a fairly big number, but you can always enter this into your calculator. When we do that, we end up getting 1,728, and then we just copy down x to the 9th, y to the 9th. So this will be our final answer here. So again, there are quite a few steps here, but again, think of it, the first thing that you're doing is the product rule on the inside. Once you simplify the inside of the parentheses, you can do the power to power with the exponent on the outside. So I'm only going to be giving you a few problems to practice today. So I do want to make sure you show your work. If you do not show your work, you will not get full credit. So this is what I mean by showing your work. Show that you did the product rule, and then show that you're doing the power to power rule.